when I buy Bitcoin, you probably should get out and run. And I suggest to them that they watch FX strategy. That's how they can find out. If you know what's going to replace the dollar, don't announce it. Give me a note, because I want to get prepared. Some of the things Mr. Trump says make a lot of sense. If I had anything to do with it, I would cut spending dramatically in the U.S. with a chainsaw. I cannot figure out why those guys in Washington, I guess they can't count. America seems to be more inclined to war than other countries, at least historically.
Guys, welcome back to fxstrategies.asia. Today we have the one and only Jim Rogers. Obviously, markets are hot, markets are cold, and we have important topics where gold been rising, silver been moving to the upside. So who not to ask apart from Jim Rogers? So now is the time to get your comments under the video, and please also don't forget to subscribe. Jim, geopolitical tensions have been rising. Is now a good time to travel the world again?
Yeah, I'd like to do it. I wish my children were more interested. I have 2 daughters, and I'd love to see the world with them, but, you know, teenage girls aren't too interested in traveling with their father. So I don't think it's going to happen, not for a while, if ever. But it would be a great time. Like God said, a lot of stuff going on, and that makes it more interesting. You'll learn a lot more when there's stuff happening, if you live.
Probably also to learn more. You mentioned your daughters. They're maybe on Instagram or TikTok, bringing us straight to the topic. TikTok nowadays in the US, how do you see the future? It's in Asia, right?
Well, the future in 2025 is complicated. There may not be a future, in fact, for many people, because you look back at history and you see that the way wars started, there's a little war here and a little war there, and nobody pays attention to that one. And the next thing you know, oh my gosh, this is serious. And I don't think I know we're not at that stage quite yet, but I do see things getting more and more serious and more complicated. And I'm not suggesting we will have a war anytime soon, but it certainly looks more and more complicated than it did in the past few years. And Washington, you know, if you look back at history, Washington doesn't seem to understand that other people don't have to do what they say. And Washington somehow seems to think, well, if we say it, you should do it because we're the smartest, most powerful people in the world. I don't know if they are. Nobody ever has been that powerful, but we'll see.
Your daughters, they now speak Chinese. They are educated in Mandarin as well. How good is their Asian language skills by now?
My girls speak perfect Mandarin, better than most Chinese. The Chinese TV people put them on TV, and I said, why? And they said, because they speak better Mandarin than we do. We saw them on the internet, and they speak better Mandarin than we do, so we wanted to show people that people with blue eyes can speak good Mandarin. It's that simple. And I'm not sure why they speak such good Mandarin, because I speak no Mandarin, and for some reason these girls apparently speak perfect Mandarin. And I had nothing to do with it except instigated it. And my goodness, the Chinese tell me they're better than they are. I don't know.
So if they tell you what Xi Jinping has been talking about, do you understand, or do they understand already that Xi Jinping is going to kind of fight the US right now, or how's the Chinese response to tariffs?
Well, you better ask him, because I see, you know, the U.S. making moves, Taiwan especially. The Chinese seem to be ignoring Taiwan. My interpretation is they're just going to let this sit there because they know that someday they will have it again if they just wait. And if they don't wait and America does something, I mean, the Pentagon studies show that America could not win a war over Taiwan. And I'm not as smart as the Pentagon, but I know they couldn't win a war over Taiwan. I don't know why they would even think of such a thing. But the Chinese, my interpretation is, they're just waiting. They know they don't have to do anything. And if they wait long enough, they'll get what they want. Whatever they want. I don't know what they want.
Talking about tariffs a bit more, apart from geopolitical tensions, but tariffs are essentially now the new war, right? Is that the end game for the US? Is that the big response where China will finally pick up more momentum?
The Chinese historically have not had many international wars. There have been very few. The Chinese historically have just not bothered. They've had some internal conflict. They've killed each other at times, but for the most part, the Chinese have not had international wars. They never invaded Berlin or places like that. Other countries have, as you well know, including the U.S. But it seems to me the Chinese are just going to sit and wait. Who knows? Especially if somebody invades them, I'm sure they will react. But the way I see what China is doing is they're just waiting. They don't need a war. That they think they don't need a war, and so they're just going to wait, watch and wait. I hope.
And moving a bit further towards the precious metals market, China has been still accumulating gold despite prices are rising. Do you see something with the gold price so high on the horizon? Some tensions flaring up because of the high gold price?
Well, I own gold, so I'm delighted to see the high price, except I'm not selling. I expect that in the next few years, the price of gold is going to go very, very high for many reasons, including possible conflict. I'm not selling my gold. If I get a chance, I'll probably buy some more because I expect the price of gold to be much higher in my lifetime, certainly in my children's lifetimes. Yes, gold has to go much higher. That's not necessarily good for the world, but those are the facts.
Let me push you more towards China and the government accumulating gold. Do you think they know anything more, or is it because they want to start a new currency and that kind of being backed over gold again in the future?
Well, I'm not the only person who knows that gold historically has held its value and even increased its value at times in history. It looks like the Chinese and others know that too. Obviously, they do. So that's why I buy gold. I'm not selling my gold. My plan is that someday my daughters are going to have my gold, and they're going to say, "Look at all this gold. He must have been smart." We'll see. We will see.
More towards commodities, rare earth. Now, your beloved president has kind of imposed tariffs over China, and China says we control export of, in particular, rare earth. What do you think about this situation and the US economy?
Well, the little I know about rare earths is that they're very valuable, and many people need them, including the U.S., including China. Everybody needs them. So if you have them, you're probably going to be rich. I don't have any. If you have any, I might buy them from you. The U.S. has some, I think, or so I read. And it seems, from what I read, is everybody should stockpile rare earths if you can.
Silver prices have been fluctuating. Now to your old topic, silver, but holding the value as well. It's important for the economy. So what do you make up of the silver price at the moment? Should we see a recession?
Well, I bought some more silver recently. I actually bought a little gold too, but more silver. Silver on a historic basis is cheaper. Silver's still down over 50%, or nearly 50% from its all-time high. So if you're going to buy a metal, I would suggest you buy silver, not gold. I bought more silver recently.
That's an important idea, yeah. How about other metals like copper, platinum, palladium? Do you see any other metals which have been super interesting
Well,
recently?
the little I know, those two, I mean, those metals are also cheaper than before. And so, yes, I haven't bought copper or some of the others recently, but maybe I should go. Maybe when you leave, I will. We will see.
Yeah. Slightly back towards the gold price, rising, potentially rising further. Some say with these digital currencies, Bitcoin, the new gold for some, is that causing maybe gold prices to be rather lower because investors are more also investing in Bitcoin nowadays?
Well, I certainly see the price of Bitcoin has gone up a lot. I certainly wish I had bought Bitcoin at $2 or $3 or something. Uh, I have not bought any of those, whatever they are, uh, currencies, if you want to call them currencies, because I don't see any real practical use. Now, they're great trading vehicles, obviously, and some people, some traders have done extremely well. I'm not a trader, which is one reason I didn't buy them, but the main reason is I don't see the use for Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, whatever you want to call them. Um, but some people who are traders love them, as you know, and they trade them all the time. I maybe someday I'll be converted. I'll be the last convert. When I buy Bitcoin, you probably should get out and run. But I have not bought any yet. As I say, I have not bought any cryptocurrencies. I have not shorted any cryptocurrencies. Um, I wish I had, obviously, but I would suspect that someday they will disappear too, like many other fads, many other trading vehicles in history. But I don't, and maybe just because I'm an old fool, but I don't see the use for crypto except as trading vehicles. But there are many things you could trade. You could trade cotton, you could trade anything you want, but not me.
Inflationary story. So now the inflation in the US, comparing it to China. Who does the smarter move? Are the Chinese smarter in containing inflation, or is the American policies the better one?
Well, inflation always results when people print money. And in the last few weeks, months, years, many people have printed money, especially the U.S., and the U.S. runs up huge debt. I cannot figure out why those guys in Washington, I guess they can't count or they don't want to count or something, because the American debt is, I mean, it's just astonishing to me. It's astonishing that it's so high, but it keeps going higher and higher and higher. Historically, that ends badly. It always has ended badly, and I presume it's going to end badly again. You know, if this were 1925, Britain was the richest, most powerful country in the world, and they ran up huge debts, and 50 years later, they were bankrupt, literally bankrupt. The Bank of England had to borrow huge amounts of money. The country was bankrupt, and they had to start over. I mean, I have read enough history to know that the U.S. is going to end very, very badly. I'm not sure when. I hope not anytime soon. But I know it always has ended extremely badly for the people who do it. And, you know, I have two daughters, essentially teenage daughters. It's not a good time to be a young American. It's a good time to be an old American. So I'm glad I'm old at this point in history.
China is holding a lot of US debt in terms of bonds. So would you think there's any moves from the Chinese government to kind of change the way the US bond market is being available, and that China might be able to kind of pay a little bit off from US debt?
Well, I know China built up a lot of debt, U.S. debt, owned a lot of U.S. debt at a time when they were building U.S. dollar reserves, and they were putting it in U.S. dollars debt, which was a wise thing to do, apparently, at the time. I certainly would not buy U.S. debt. I have U.S. dollars. I own a lot of U.S. dollars, but I own them in short-term paper because I don't want to be a creditor of the U.S. In any permanent way. So I mean, I can add, I can subtract, and I don't know how America can ever pay those huge debts that we have built up. And they keep getting bigger and bigger. And I don't see a future for the U.S. in the debt market, except problems, just like the British had once upon a time. You know, you weren't around 100 years ago, and me neither, but I know what happened when the Brits built up gigantic debt. And it was not good. Not good for them, it's not good for the world. And I'm afraid, I mean, many countries have gone through this historically, and I don't see any escape for the U.S. except big, big problems down the road.
You've
Let's say
never
it's a good time to be old.
you've never been a big advocate of the dollar. Now the BRICS countries or the bloc of BRICS is growing, and they have thought about building their own currency. Is that something which you would consider as a smart move of BRICS starting their own currency or payment system?
Well, I know that the world needs a competitor to the dollar. Let's put it that way. And I'm probably not the only person who knows that the world needs something to compete with the U.S. dollar. And yes, I know that they're talking about it. They have not come up with something viable yet, or something permanent. They probably will, but that's going to cause more turmoil in the U.S., in the world, not the U.S., in the U.S. and the world. It's certainly going to cause more turmoil as people start switching to other currencies. And I don't particularly like it because I'm going to have to deal with it. We all are. But it's coming. So if you know what's going to replace the dollar, don't announce it. Give me a note because I want to get prepared.
Is it a good time maybe at the moment to travel to Russia and to look for potential assets in Russia since they have been kind of cut off from the markets? Is there anything you would say Russia might be something interesting looking beyond the BRICS bloc?
Well, yes, except there's a war. Investing during war is sometimes very profitable if you invest in the right side. Uh, yes, I I am looking at and contemplating investing in Russia. Uh, I see what's happening there. Moscow seems to be changing. Moscow seems to understand that communism is not a great system. It's not a great way to run the world, much less your own country. So yes, I am more optimistic about Russia than I have been in a while.
The debt in Russia, as far as I understand, is way lower compared to the US debt. How can they manage their country? Not that bad, obviously, if they do.
Well, I don't know what's going to happen there. I know that the history of Russia has lots of turmoil at times, and they are. Seems to me that they're leading to more turmoil now, but also the history of Russia is long periods of great peace and prosperity. And at times in history, there's been nobody richer than Russian farmers. At times, um, if you were a huge Russian agricultural monarch or whatever, you were extremely rich. So, and I know they have vast, vast properties, huge amounts of land, If you haven't been there, you don't have to go. You can read about it, but there is lots of property out there, huge amounts in the in Siberia. I've driven across Russia 2 or 3 times, and there's a lot of land. There's a lot of land, and it's interesting. It's interesting to watch and look. I don't want to live there, but there are lots of people out there in Siberia and lots of assets in Siberia. So I'm not investing in Russia now because of the war. I'm American, so that's not allowed. But if I were not American, I would certainly be looking at putting money into Russia now.
Is maybe your president, Donald Trump, is he maybe kind of helping you in that way, bringing potentially Putin to the table and making things possible again?
The situation with Mr. Trump is he doesn't know what he's going to do. He wakes up in the morning, watches the TV, and then decides what to do, depending on what's happening on the TV. So I hope that he has a very sound plan for all of us in the future. But, Margaret Thatcher, we more or less knew what she would do if something happened. Mr. Trump, in my view, doesn't know himself what to do if something happens. He decides on the spur of the moment. I hope he knows what he's doing. It will not be good for the world if he's helter-skelter.
We might agree to end the war would be something peaceful, something positive in a way. Is the rare earth deal with the Ukraine something you could see maybe potentially making sense?
Well, look, some of the things Mr. Trump says make a lot of sense historically. He talks about getting rid of NATO. I mean, I don't quite know why we need NATO, why the world needs it. I don't know why Europe needs it. I don't know who they're planning to fight against. Maybe it's there to fight Russia again. But I don't see the need for it. So I would agree with Mr. Trump. We need to do something about NATO, including getting rid of it. I don't know who they're going to fight. Maybe we're all going to go to war with Russia someday. I don't think we're all going to fight Germany again. I don't think there's much need for NATO in that sense, except a lot of people have jobs because of NATO, and they want to keep their jobs. And that seems to be the main rationale for NATO that I can see. I don't see any need for NATO myself, and if Trump does something about it, it might be good. It might be bad. We will see, because who knows what Mr. Trump will do. As I say, he doesn't know what he will do.
Talking to the Germans in Germany, they seem to be very afraid about Russia invading Europe now, invading Germany. And you said as well, NATO is something we don't need. So what do you make of that situation that Russia really would go over to further and other countries in Europe?
Well, if there's going to be war in Europe, we need NATO, yes. But I, for one, don't see a war in Europe coming unless America starts it. America seems to be more inclined to war than other countries, at least historically. So I don't see a need for NATO, but let's see what Mr. Trump does. As I say, from the way I read Mr. Trump, he doesn't know what he wants either. He changes all the time, depending on what's happening in the world. So we will see. But I would be quite happy to stop paying for NATO. America pays for most of it. American taxpayers pay for most of it. So I'd be happy to stop. But I doubt if that's going to happen soon.
You mentioned Donald Trump has no clue about anything, but he has Elon Musk, a successful entrepreneur on his side in a way. Do you see that this is a chance now with this Doge government idea to kind of cut spending in the US, to cut agencies? Does that make sense?
Well, I don't know how successful Mr. Musk is. I know he says he is very successful, and I know that the press says he's very successful. But I also read some people who say, wait a minute, this is not real. I just don't know. I don't know. Mr. Musk says it's real. Many other people say it's real, but I have no way of knowing. If he's as rich as he says he is, hooray for him. And maybe hooray for the world, unless he does something foolish. And unfortunately, people who become extremely successful historically often do something foolish, which is not good for them or good for the world. I know that there are detractors who say that Mr. Musk is not as successful as he says. I don't know. I have not done any homework. I have not done any research.
Spending is too high for the US government, cutting spending potentially needed. How would you say we would need, or the Americans would need, to cut spending to make their country more competitive?
Well, if I had anything to do with it, I would cut spending dramatically in the U.S. with a chainsaw. I would cut spending because I'm not sure what we're getting for all of our spending. I don't see what we're getting for it. Even the highway system seems to be deteriorating. I know one time we had the best highways in the world. We don't seem to now. So I don't know where it's all going. From what I read, a lot of it is going into transfer payments, welfare, whatever. And that's great for the people who get it. I'm not so sure it's good for the people who are putting up the money. I'm not sure what America's getting for it. So I would certainly cut spending with a chainsaw if I had the choice.
Infrastructure is one idea in the US being kind of pushed further to the upside. China has been doing very well. We're now in Singapore. Whenever there's a crisis, Singapore government kind of boosts spending in infrastructure. Is China doing then better compared to the US in their infrastructure projects?
Well, the U.S. is the largest debtor nation in the world, the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, and the debt is going higher every day. So, U.S. history shows that the U.S. cannot have a perpetual future the way it does now, and the U.S. is going to have a gigantic problem sometime. And unfortunately, perhaps in my lifetime, certainly in my children's lifetime, because the debt is just so it cannot be met. We cannot deal with the debt someday. At the moment, we can get away with it, and we are getting away with it. But no, in 1925, Britain was the richest, most powerful country in the world. There was no number two. 50 years later, it was bankrupt. I don't see how the U.S. can avoid. I mean, I can add. That's the problem. I can add and subtract. And I don't think they can in Washington, which is part of the problem. And I mean, if you just go back and read history, you see this ends very badly for the U.S. I'm not sure when, but historically, I mean, the U.S. has staggering debt now, and it's been building up for a long time, and it's getting higher and higher. And history shows this is bleak. This is grim for the U.S. and for people who are U.S. citizens and taxpayers. Eventually, somebody's going to say, enough is enough, and it's going to be a big problem, just as it was for Britain. I mean, I repeat, Britain was once, 100 years ago, was the richest, most powerful country in the world. There was no number two. 50 years later, it was bankrupt. Britain went bankrupt. IMF had to bail them out. It was not fun. And I'm afraid I know that has happened to everybody else in history who has run up staggering debts. Eventually, somebody says, you got to pay. And they say, we can't pay. It's coming.
China and the infrastructure in China, it's being built up with fast lightning speed. Is that the smarter way to now run an economy moving forward?
Well, you're exactly right. I don't know if you've driven across China. I've driven across China 2 or 3 times more. It is astonishing. The first time I drove across China, it was basically just desert. It was essentially no road. Now they got the best roads in the world, best highways in the world. They learned how to build highways from other people, and they did it, and they are doing it. But it's not just highways, hotels, everything, restaurants. Oh my gosh, there were no restaurants, no pillows. First time I drove across China, but now, if you need it, they've got it, and if they don't have it, they'll have it soon, because they're hardworking, save lots of money, energetic, educated, extremely educated now. America was like that once, and we built a gigantic infrastructure, a huge, successful country. It's happening in China too now. I made sure my children learn Chinese. We will see. It may be bad for them, but right now it's good for them.
Jim, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate once more to get your valuable insights. And obviously, guys, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Obviously, leave your comments for hopefully another video soon with Jim. And Jim, see you next time. Thank you.
My delight, my pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.